Yeah.
That's not too long.
Hey,
I see.
I mean, bro, chill out.
What you gonna be, babe?
No. You got that? I got it.
Yeah, 40 and slip just now.
His mama, he don't talk. The woman, he talks all the time. He don't talk to you because they don't feel safe. That if they showed you their true self, they won't be judged. They brought up their porn, they brought up their weed, they brought up their alcohol, they brought up the women, that you're going to get so attached to that you're going to judge them and never see them. But man, I was adopted, and I'm grateful that I was. And because my father who raised me, for the type of temperament I had, the type of personality I had, like, I don't think there could have been a better father. What's up, man? It's your boy Crump.
And Shizzy.
Boy, man, King Podcast. Listen, man, excited to have this episode because I want to have this conversation.
Okay, let's get it.
First and foremost, man, tell the public, tell our listening audience, really, why did you wear that shirt? Like,
I wore this shirt because I knew at the end of the podcast, you would come to me and ask me for one. Right? And you really, because you got on a salmon color shirt.
Yeah, but this is tough. That's suspect.
That's tough. So salmon's tough.
That's 66, between 66 and 71.
66 and 71?
This is 2020 and up. I don't know what that is.
We ain't gonna talk about the blooper reel, what you just said in the blooper reel just now. We're gonna leave that alone for today, if somebody's sus. But anyway, we back. Boy Man King Podcast, man. What we gonna cover today? It's just me and you this time, bro.
Yeah, listen, man. I guess, we've been having, man conversations with our team. Shout out to Jake, PJ, holding us down in the background. But just this whole passion about why this is here, why we're having these conversations, and how season 1 has progressed. It's been some incredible guests that we had. And we had young, old, we had black, white, we had even teenager on the show. And everybody came from a different background, different experience, but there has been some common themes. Trauma being one of them. And having identity challenges being another. But it's been also cool to see how people have overcome. It's cool to see the courage people displayed. And I just kind of want to remind audience of the why. Yeah. Like at the bedrock of who I am and who you are, people may not know we've been working in the community together for almost 16 years in different spaces, in education, gangs, boys' home, girls' home, nonprofit space, and that's just what we did together. Right. In our time in Bermuda, and now doing some stuff here in the States. Right. And somebody would say, why? Why not just get the good job, got the wife and kids, and go chill off and coming back and forth to Bermuda on the beach? Why make the investment of building a platform like this? Why do that? And I kind of want to share that in today's episode. It's really about, at the end of the day, I am who I am for a couple of reasons. And the easy cliche thing says my faith. But man, I was adopted, and I'm grateful that I was. And because my father who raised me, for the type of temperament I had, the type of personality I had, like, I don't think there could have been a better father. Because I think all of it being from the humble beginnings, being country, being based in the church, seeing an example of a father who always stepped up to challenges for the whole family, though. It's one thing to see somebody step up to, kids, we're in the background, we're seeing what our parents are doing and not doing. And I would see my dad co-sign for cars because people had bad credit. I remember when my sister was bankrupt. I remember when my cousin got kicked out of his girlfriend's house. I remember my brother was in it with his wife. I remember all these things and what people would do because I'm a little kid. I'm 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They would come and talk to my dad in the middle of the night. Right. They would knock on the door 10, 11, 12, 1, my dad. But my dad was always the same way. So especially back then, he was loud. So you could be in the house and still hear my dad cussing you out outside, right?
Yeah.
But then one thing he would always do, he would cuss you out, tell you about yourself, and then he would go to his safe. You know what I'm saying? And I saw him do that again and again and again, and I think it just subconsciously has played a role in my life, you know, and how I see things, how I see people.
Yeah.
I would tell you about yourself. I would hold you accountable. I would just speak directly. Some people say overly frank, but I love on you too, you know. And when I look at my dad and I see what it did for those 4 houses that was in that yard of 3 acres that he bought for $150 back in 1958.
Wow.
He bought 3 acres. I see what it did for 3 generations of men. Right? Because him and my mom, you know, built the house, started in 1959, and raised multiple people. But I seen what it did for the men there. And when I look at my life and talking about the elements of the world, whether we're talking about, you know, abortion, whether we're talking about domestic issues, whether we're talking about divorces, to me, at the end of the day, every man that I know that's of value, that's of stature, that is respected and revered by his wife, the government doesn't come in and intervene in their household.
Not at all.
And it's like, that is so obvious now with the data, with the times that we're in, when information is kind of bluntly out there. And to see how challenging it is to even want to be a man of that type of stature and take on those type of responsibilities, and for the woman to respond and respect it so that everybody can be blessed, right? That's involved. And to know, as almost like we're wired to do that, we're wired to come together, but we'll come together for our own reasons. Sure. We'll objectify each other's body. You know, we had a moment at night, we're playing a game with somebody, we're in a bad space and we just need somebody to confide in. We got all these other reasons why we get together as men and women. But if we really understood our roles and responsibility and possibilities that we can have, if we accepted, you know what I mean, certain things about our value towards each other and what that could mean for our children's children, there wouldn't be no need for government intervention. There won't be no need for these nonprofits of support systems for women and children. There is a need. There is a need now because of the narratives, because of the opinions, because of the choices that we individually select in our own individual silos that creates all these other issues that we're trying to address. And I feel like we're just addressing it on surface level, individually, you know?
Yeah, it's challenging. So, like you, the why for me is similar in that, you know, I grew up. My dad was you know, always involved in church, always involved in working with young people, always involved in trying to, you know, support personal development of young people. And I didn't realize it until later on in my life why I was motivated to do the things that I do. Because at a very young age, I had a strong father, male husband, dad, you know, in my household. I have an older sibling, I have an older brother and a younger sister. And I saw my dad's grind. I knew his why. His why was motivated by his relationship, you know, with Christ, of course. And his why was also, you know, he just had a love of working with young people. We would go to the neighborhood and pick up kids for Sunday school, for youth group on Friday, and I was immersed in that type of environment from a young age. So as I got older, like you said, like, why not take the corporate job? Why not take, because, you know, we have the capacity to do so. We have the intellect to do so. We have the, you know, the gravitas to speak to anybody about anything. But my why is very simply because similar to you, similar to my dad, similar to your dad, we just saw the necessity of having good, strong, male spiritual relationships to help and aid in developing families and developing, you know, where we are and who we are today. No different from this podcast. What we do, our why for this podcast is Boy, Man, King. Having real conversations about real issues, because we have a range of audience. We've had, like you said, we've had white, black, young, old on our podcast for this season, and everyone has a different story. But we all recognize that this message and this voice is critical to the work that we do. And I look at it like a gift to bless. If you're blessed to bless others. So I don't see this to be, anything that I do because I'm compelled to do it. Like it's a blessing to be able to just be in a space like this to help to develop young men. I remember when I started Youth on the Move with my colleagues years ago, straight out of college, easily. You got a lot of energy. I could have easily went the corporate route. I had an internship lined up in MTV in New York, and then reality kicked in. My son was conceived at the time. I was with his mom, and I was forced to make decisions. I could have stayed in New York, shirked my responsibility as a father, but I knew that wasn't my experience. I knew my dad was there with me every day, all day, and I wanted my son to have that exact same experience. Came back to Bermuda, started Youth on the Move, and we've been doing this work for a number of years at different capacities. Built that from the ground up, was developing programs for young people 18 to 35, because as we knew in Bermuda, there were no services for young men at that time. So if you get lost by the wayside, then what resources do you have at your disposal? So we were doing leadership programs for them, getting people jobs, mentorship, getting them driver's license, employment, all of that, getting them educated. And that's kind of how you and I met. Yeah. Just through both of our work. And our paths just intertwined in that way, from that drive and that passion just to be able to be a resource for young men. Different stories, but similar outcomes sort of thing. So it's a blessing, man.
Yeah, it is. And I want to highlight two pieces. One, you mentioned you got these choices in your 20s. Yeah. Right? So I'm married. Like, I knew my wife. I didn't just know that my wife was beautiful and we was cordial and we liked each other. I knew she was wife material. Yeah. Like, I knew that, as an athlete, you see a lot of women, right? And especially as a college or professional athlete. Right. But the reality is, at the time, they don't come off as wifey material. Right, yeah. Right? Yeah. From jump, I knew my wife was wifey material. Like 18, I knew. Right. I knew I wasn't ready, though. Sure. Right? And so I asked her, because I felt like, let me finish college to figure out what I want to do. But I knew I wanted to play ball. And when you mentioned this part about you got this idea, you got this opportunity, I had the opportunity to play pro ball. Right. And when I realized that my initial years, the amount of money that they was paying me wasn't going to be able to accommodate both of our lifestyles. Yeah. So much so that she couldn't even come with me. Like, they would only accommodate one person because I would have a roommate. And the amount of money they was paying me, like, I'm just going to try my best to save that before I get the bigger opportunity. Right. And I did two tours, and one stint was like, what they didn't tell me was, people don't care how much money you don't do and make. When you're a professional basketball player in somebody's city and country, they just know that you're a professional basketball player. Execute. And it was the first time I tell people all the time, I was very good at controlling how I chase the cat. I said I was terrible at when the cat chases me. Right. I said, and I don't think a lot of men are truly prepared for gorgeous, talented women to chase you. Right. As a man. Yeah. Like, they don't play girl games. They get right to it. And I was like, being on tour, her not next to me was just not a good space for me to be with my fiance. Sure. And I was like, if I can't take her, I don't want to go. And you think about where your life would go, and you're 23 years old, and you're at the peak of your athletic ability. Right. But I was like, if I can't do it without her, man, I don't trust myself in these streets. And I really didn't want to be a baby daddy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I said I would go home, work some way that I can get a bigger contract, and just play on the Bermuda national team. Right. And another place that we play gel together is in through basketball with the Bermuda national program. And as I was in Bermuda, waiting for an opportunity, I got into education, got into the schools, got into the local church, got into the local community. And people kept asking me to speak, kept asking me to mentor, kept asking me to coach, right? Yeah. But I'm struggling because I'm struggling. So you asked me to do this stuff, but I'm broke.
Right.
You asked me to do this stuff, but I don't know what I'm doing. You asked me to do this stuff, I'm trying to figure it out. And then when I got director, program, and leader of this school, it's like I'm still figuring out. So I'm saying to myself, I'm a young man driven with ambition, who had an incredible father, who has a personal relationship with Christ, who has a college education, who has traveled to multiple countries, and I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So why would you not think I would be an advocate for a person who didn't have a dynamic father in their life,
right?
Who don't know Jesus as their personal savior, who don't have a college education, who haven't traveled the world? What do you expect just because he's 28, just because he's 25, just because he's 24? I'm 24. I know how to be a man.
Nah.
I know how to self-sacrifice for my life for the rest of the day till the day I die. I know how to do that just like that. No. It is an everyday battle. So that is the reason for the passion behind the advocacy, because even though somebody may run off a list of my accomplishments on my resume, I still don't know what I'm doing. I'm sharing my experiences. I'm sharing my journey. I'm sharing things that worked and then didn't work. And I even preface now, when I give coaching, this is what worked for me.
Right, yeah. It's not
so this is not for me to tell you this and for you to copy it.
Yeah.
Because what you need to do is what I said and how I got here, you need to ask me some questions. Okay, how much money did you have? Well, what was your situation with your wife? Because that's a difference.
Right.
If you had money, if we didn't have money. If you married, if you wasn't married. You can't just say because I'm the same age, we got the same dream, you got the same drive, make the same decision. No. You have to consider the circumstances and the situation. You got to consider the things that led you up to that point. And because we're so silent on this, because men should just have it together. For whatever reason and narrative that we make up, here's the truth. And newsflash, we don't.
No.
And we just try to find safe spaces that we won't get judged.
Right.
And if a man is not coming to you, so everybody say, man, he don't talk. You just say, I don't know. It's okay, baby, you okay? Yeah, fine. When a man keeps, it's like I do with these players that I train. He don't talk. His mama, he don't talk. The woman, he talks all the time. He don't talk to you.
Yeah.
And here's the hard truth. If every man talks all the time, you put him on a video game, you'll see a whole new boy light up.
Right.
They don't talk to you because they don't feel safe.
Right.
That if they showed you their true self, they won't be judged.
Yeah, you judge them. Yeah.
If they brought up their porn, if they brought up their weed, if they brought up their alcohol, if they brought up the women, that you're going to get so attached to that you're going to judge them and never see them.
Yeah.
So we try to create spaces through the prayer line, through our network, where men can feel very comfortable about their mental health, about porn, about their women, about the drugs, about the alcohol, about how they was raised and where they come from, so that they can get real help. All right? Because once you have a man who's healthy and who's mentally stable and who's whole, you do not have to worry about his women and children.
And one would think that it's elementary, given where we are socially, given everything we see. Everyone, if you ask anybody, what's the problem? What's going on in our communities? It's the man. It's the absence of the man in the family. It's the absence of the man in leadership roles. It's the absence of the spiritual man in the church. It's the absence of man. But we all know this, but no one is really taking the bull's body horn to really try to address it. So there's two things that happen. They either don't want to address it or they don't know how to address it.
Yeah, I think they both happen at the same time.
Yeah, and there's a combination of both.
Because here's so much truth we got to really talk about. Because you guys know this. Like there's a natural fear to a man.
Yeah.
Like there's a natural fear to, like I'm talking to my white mom or my black wife, and women, when they're independent, like they think completely different about the world. Like lock this. Lock this. But I'm like, yeah, but the spray and the horn and the taser, and they're like, I'm like the thoughts you're having when you're by yourself in a house, like I've never had these thoughts,
right? Because
I never processed. You're a 6'4" black dude.
Sure.
People don't walk around and say, see that 6'4" athlete? He's vulnerable. Let's take advantage of him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now here's the thing. Because you're a short little white lady, because you're an independent little black woman, you feel you have been taken advantage of. Like people don't know 1 in all 3 women have been touched, been violated, just been taken advantage of because you're just a woman. I'm just going to touch you without you asking. Right? So that brings feelings, that brings thoughts, that brings attitude, energy, and behavior towards something. If I've never had that, I'm like, where is this coming from? Right? And so now, what do? As a natural response of protecting myself, I get defensive.
Sure.
Yeah. And over time, I've learned how to shut down, to shut off the energy. Yeah. But you know because you love me, you know because you want me, you know because you see me, there's something else there. But because of what I've experienced over the years,
I can't navigate it.
I can't let you in because every time I try to give you a little bit, it went left. So now I'm at a space of just maturity and just what I've experienced, shut it off, so I don't even have to deal with it. You know what I mean? And so I told my wife, I've never been safe with her.
Yeah.
Now, I wish I could tell you that I told her this 15 years ago.
Right.
I told her this year.
Yeah.
Like I told her that the reason why we never went to the depths of conversations that I've desired to go to.
Sure.
Is because deep down, my experience has taught me you would judge me and you would throw it back in my face.
Yeah.
So, experience being that teacher of mine, I say, you know what? I'm just not going to go down that space, and I open up to the prayer line. I open up to a brother, one or two.
Right.
One or two.
Yeah.
That I can really release this stuff off of me.
And the greater conversation is vital, man. Because if you're called every day to be with your wife and to be the breadwinner and to be the support system and to be the person that's there to support her, who better to be vulnerable with, who better to share those vulnerabilities with and help you navigate both for you and for her, who better to do that with? But like you say, it's a society and culturally and all these other things that we have imposed on ourselves doesn't allow for that.
Yeah.
So there's a greater conversation that needs to take place. So it can't just, so yes, we address it, man. We talking to young men, we talking to older men, but a greater conversation, like you said, is having that conversation with the women as well. So that they have an understanding, like we were talking about earlier off camera, of how to navigate me as a man. Because like you said, with me in the house, with me around, with me doing my part, you get the residual benefits of all of that. My kids get the benefits of all of that. The greater community gets the benefits of all of that. The jails get reduced in size and numbers. But then when you look at it, when you really, really break it down, do we really run? Do we, when I say we, does the community, does the government, do all these people really want that to take place? Because once you start to peel back those layers and you recognize that these are where the gaps are and numbers diminish, profiling goes down, males aren't seen to be volatile because you got women in the community that respect and honor. And we're not placing blame to the women solely. No. What we're saying is there definitely needs to be a buffer, an understanding, a conversation, a shift in how we perceive a male role. And this ain't color-based. This has nothing to do. It's not racially based. It's not economically based. It's based solely on humanity. Yeah, and what's necessary to push humanity forward. Yeah. Because it's not a black issue. It's not a white issue. It's a people issue. And that's the real conversations that we really, 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 really need to have in a greater platform. Because we have our lighter black brothers who have similar problems with the women that we do. So it can be about race. Not all black people are rich. Not all black people are broke. Just like not all white people are rich. Not all Hispanic people are rich. Not all Hispanic people are broke. Not all white people are broke. So like we know, it's more. It comes down to it's a people issue. Mm-hmm. It's a people issue, and that's the healing that's necessary. So platforms like this, platforms like the prayer line. Mm-hmm. I said to BK the other day when he was on the line ages ago, maybe we need a woman's version of the prayer line. And
there is pockets of it, but I do want to share this piece when I share with everybody when I deal with coaching. I said, when I kind of give my presentations, I make it crystal clear. Men are the most important species in our society. It's not even close. But also, women are the most powerful
Right.
And it's not even close.
I'm glad you said that, because some people would hear that and be like,
yeah. But the problem is, even if that energy jumped into you,
right.
there's no comparing and competing with this.
Exactly.
It's accepting the
It's
necessity
symbiosis.
it's accepting the necessity of both. Mm-hmm. Could you imagine if the grass and the water was arguing with each other?
It's crazy, right?
Like, but the reality is the grass is different from the water, and the water is different from the grass, and they both are necessary, and they both provide something that we all need.
This is it.
And until we fully embrace that as a collective, we would never. So, why do I share that? When I finally confessed that to my wife this year, I realized in 2001 that we fell in love, but in 2022 we're in love.
Right.
Like, we was in commitment for a long time, but I wouldn't necessarily say we was in love. How me and my wife go and serve each other now, we never experienced before. And like you said, until we get to that depth of conversation, we can never even experience the love that God had already originally created for us, but it was so hard for us to get over ourselves.
Sure.
And so now that I've experienced that, and I was getting there in stages, right? But now that I've experienced what I want every human being to experience what I'm experiencing now, man. Yeah. The parenting is easier. The financial conversations, we're about to do some investments. Like every conversation that's sticky when it comes to people know what I'm talking about who married. Can I get an amen? Somebody?
Amen. And even those who aren't married or we're married, trust me, we get it.
Because you can't, if you be honest, as men, we're not blunt about like sex, money, respect in my house. We're like subliminal, passive aggressive. Hence, let me pray about it. I'm in a space, I'm like, babe, on average, I need probably, I'm not what I'm used to be.
This what
2 or 3 times a week, I need some sex stuff.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So figure it out. You know what I mean? And let me know if you need help.
And I'm willing to do my part to make sure we get there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But I'm just saying, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I couldn't just plainly say, hey, babe, where I'm at. And I said, I need caressing. I need you to want to love me. I can't be always trying to create an environment.
Right,
I need you just to want to freaking love me because I'm your husband.
Yeah.
And whatever you got that's blocking that energy, let's talk about it.
Right,
You know what I mean? The finances, the real finances. Having a real conversation about all the finances and how the finances move in this whole family.
Right.
We're just, like, it took what it took. But until we had that frank conversation, bro, now we're having conversations and experience that we never had, never knew existed. That's why when J.A. says, stay strong enough, long enough, I'm literally experiencing that now. And that's why I want to encourage people who are in the hard times, because hard times are necessary for the good times.
Yeah, sure. It's amazing. And those conversations, those experiences are beneficial to a lot of people. Because not everybody, you have to recognize not everybody's where you are in your space. Somebody like me, I'm divorced, been divorced maybe 3 years. If I reflect on my past mistakes from my last relationship, had I been immersed in a process that I'm in now, I can't say I would be divorced. I would have a different measurement. And that's not to slight any new relationship I'm in or any past experience that I had. I'm just saying that when you put yourself in a position to, 1, be humble, to 2, be accountable, and to 3, to allow God to work in your life, then you see things a little differently. You act a little differently. Your tolerance for things may be different. And so now I may have had the capacity to deal with the things or to allow humility to take precedence over reaction and be able to, speak to my family at the time and my wife at the time and be like, hey, this is probably the direction we need to go with your help, with the help of other people who've had the same experiences. You know what I'm saying? So for me, my journey now is trying to deconstruct some of that stuff and take away some of that stuff so that in the next relationship that I'm in now, we can be better for each other. Yeah. And we could be better for my kids and potentially if we have our own kids. But you won't get that if you're just functioning in isolation. If I can't come to my boy Chris, who's been through it 10 years ago with his wife,
10 years ago,
or if I can't go to my brother Shannon, who had been through a relationship, who's now in something different, who can't say, hey, this is what I experienced. Maybe you should try this. You know, we all need mentors. And so not having that, you're left to function and do things in isolation and be irrational and not have a measurement for accountability, and you just do stuff that's crazy, that has adverse effects for yourself, for your family, which makes this platform and platforms like this vital. And, you know, we're not shamelessly plugging Boy Man King, because we know Boy Man King is great. But there are other Boy Man King platforms that need to manifest and need to be prevalent throughout our communities, so that man can just be man and be who we are. And like you said, the women and families feel the residual effects of this environment that we could create. And it's probably easier than we think it is, you know.
Yep, bro. And as we transition and close out, man, I just want to say, I wish I could tell you that this season of my life, that what I'm doing is deep, what I'm doing is hard, what I'm doing is like, you know, going to a master class for, is really truly something I can't truly explain because it's so easy.
Yeah.
That's why it's hard for me to explain it, because it's like, and me and my wife are saying, yo, have we endured this all this time because of ourselves? And you know what, when you try to think of some other reason,
right,
you know what the sad reality is? Whether you was fearful, prideful, because it's only a couple things, you know. I mean, you can break it down to a nuance to your situation, but it's based in pride or fear.
Sure.
If it's not operating the way God had originally designed it to.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because when God orchestrates something, there's no work needed. The work was already done. Just be.
Yeah, just be.
And when you can't, birds ain't trying to be birds. You know what I'm saying?
They are.
Grass, they just are.
They just
you know
are.
what I'm saying? Like, everything he created, it just wakes up every day, just be. Like, don't worry about nothing that's going on. Like, this what I am. It's what it is. What I do. Yeah. We're the only ones that second guess.
I like when you said that if the grass, I think you use the grass and the water.
Yeah.
If the grass, could you imagine the grass and the water fighting?
Yeah.
Like, that's as simple as it gets.
Bruh.
But as we know, we try to make it complex.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's amazing, man.
Yeah. So look, man, it's a pleasure.
Hey, man. Season 2 is coming.
Yeah.
We gonna season 2 is gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
Should we tell them a little bit about what season 2 is?
Nah, man, they have to subscribe, they have to like, they have to comment, join the email list, join the family, join the tribe, join the community, and let us know what topics, you know what I mean? Even if it's guests, like, well, let us know people you want to, and if you're interested in being a guest, you know what I mean? You can reach out to us, man. Check out the information below, and we look forward to breaking bread with you guys. Thank you so much for joining the Boy Man King podcast. Till next time.